We have been joined now by Spencer Herbert from the NDP. And he has looked at nowpolling.ca, and he's chosen the housing issue, the provincial housing, and he's going to tell us what would be the best way of administering housing in British Columbia. So, Spencer.
All right. Thank you, Pedro. Well, I think the problem that we have right now is we've got homelessness has gone up 373% under Gordon Campbell. Now, that's a shocking thing in a province as prosperous as ours. What's happened is in 2001, the government cut all housing programs, slashed benefits to people, and has made it even more difficult for people to stay in their homes. So you've got a situation where the numbers, the thousands and thousands of people are now on the streets, in the parks, and of course we've just seen now they say you can sleep in parks as well because there's not proper housing. I think what we need to do is treat it like the crisis it is. The government needs to step forward and say...
How does the government step forward?
Well, we've got a few solutions.
Yeah,
yes.
What we're looking for is a very short statement that we could add here if it's not one of the stated solutions.
I think it's stated, one of the solutions is right there on nowpolling.ca, and that's that the government needs to administer housing through BC Housing, through non-profit associations. I think there's also the possibility of working with some private partners, as we've seen. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution to this. You also need to encourage, it's not easy to say this is the only way to do it.
Spencer, how would the private partners contribute to the solution of housing?
I think, as we've seen in Vancouver, in some cases they will do the building of the housing.
Well, they always do that.
Yeah, not always. Sometimes the government is building them.
The government doesn't have a construction company.
No, but what I mean is that
the private sector has always built buildings.
But what I'm talking about here is in a situation where there's a private group building an apartment tower, for example, condos. You can say to them that you must have this amount of space for social housing, and then you have a nonprofit run it. That's something that's starting to happen more often here in Vancouver. I think it's a model that can work. Because, rather than having a neighborhood where it's all high-priced accommodation, you can have a neighborhood where you have a diversity, where it's high-priced, middle-priced, low-income, with different levels of supports. So that's one of the issues. But right now, the provincial government has $250 million sitting in a bank account, which should be used for housing. They're just using the interest, saying that's enough. But as we've seen, homelessness has gone through the roof.
Okay, so if you were elected, you would advocate for the release of that money or the investment of that money in social housing?
Absolutely. I think we need to get 2,500 units built as soon as possible, and that release of that money would do that, as well as assisted living, because just providing a home isn't enough for many people.
Okay, maybe we can hear for a minute from Ian.
Sure.
See what his solution would be for housing as well.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say homelessness became a real issue in the 1990s when the NDP was in power. It continued under the BC Liberals.
Yeah, Ian, we're looking for solutions.
Oh, we're looking for solutions.
We start looking at who did last year or 10 years ago. It doesn't help the problem of housing. So the problem of housing is today, and what this poll is looking is for how would you solve it?
Okay, there's not a one solution thing. You need tax incentives for builders to build rental housing as opposed to condos. We have to shift the tax structure to encourage more building of rental housing.
You mean lowering the tax too for builders because they're paying too much? Would that help? Putting
the tax incentives. There's tax incentives for condo developers, but there's not so many tax incentives for rental developers. So I would shift the benefits from building condos to building rental housing. I would also increase the BC housing assistance to people. And also there's another issue here. There's a lot of homeless people right now that are mentally ill. And the NDP closed down Riverview Hospital. And I was hoping that when Gordon Campbell came into power, he would reopen Riverview. He didn't. So I would reopen Riverview and house those mentally ill people there. I think it's very barbaric and cruel to put them out on the street.
Now, I have a question, and if you go on our polls here, you find that electoral issues, and you click on electoral issues, and one of those subtopics says MLA's term of office. So there are several solutions to it, and one of them says voters' right to perpetual elections. With the computerized systems that we have now, the government could easily create an ongoing voting machine where people can go with a card and put in public libraries to the access of everyone, and have a perpetual ongoing electoral system. And therefore the MLAs wouldn't have to wait for elections day, because elections day would be when I, the voter, decide to change my vote. That's one of the solutions there. Another one says the term of office should be 2 years, and another one says fixed term 4 years, as is now. And some other one says that they should be, MLA should be randomly picked, like in jury. What would be your solution, the best solution to increase accountability of MLAs?
Well, I think there's
Talking of term of office.
For sure. Well, I think term of office is a small part of what the bigger problem is, which is when people vote. Quite often their votes don't count because either their party doesn't win enough support, or they're in an area where maybe they get 40% of their vote and the other guys get 45% of the vote. Meanwhile, that makes it so that 40% don't count. So our system, the first past the post system, I think is the bigger challenge.
So term of office is not your main issue, is the way we elect majority. Because first past the post, there's a majority of the people in one riding. Yeah. Whereas proportional representation is the majority, the party majority in a larger area. So you don't think that term of office is really the issue?
I don't think that's the issue here. I think, as well as, of course, financing of political parties is a bigger issue in terms of accountability. We believe in the NDP that we need to eliminate corporate and union donations of public financing, financing for political parties, because those are the bigger challenges for voter accountability, I believe.
Many years ago, you probably were still very young, when Rita Johnston was the Premier of British Columbia. I think it was around 1991 when the NDPs came into power. She put a question, a referendum, and she asked the people of BC, do you want recall and referendum? 85% of people said yes, they wanted it. A couple of years later, the Greens came up with a proportional representation, and they couldn't collect 10% across the province that was needed to
I remember, it was a real challenge, yeah.
So that tells me that more people are thinking of recall and referendum as the number one, the most important thing, not party proportionality. But to you, you're saying that's the other way around.
I hear you, but I guess to go back to the early 90s to say this is what people think, I don't think makes sense. Like, you know, you're talking about...
Think they have changed their mind now?
I think there's a whole bunch of... You can ask people a question today, and you'll get a poll, and they'll say one thing. But
our poll says that perpetual elections is the number one.
How many votes do you have on that?
Oh, we have a few.
A few votes.
We have over 1,000 people registered in our poll, and past April, it got reset to 0, accidentally. We were doing some upgrades, and so now you see just 5 in this poll, but we had over 100 people participating in it, and perpetual elections was the number one choice. So
I guess that's the point of your website, right? Is that you're advocating for perpetual elections. So if you ask a poll saying we should do this,
but we don't give the answer. So people, you're able.
Right. No, I know, but I just read your website.
You're able to put a different answer and vote on it.
Sure. Yeah, but I just read the website, and it said that this is what you're advocating for. Right. And I know quite often in polls, and we see it, all political parties, all corporations, unions, they ask leading questions sometimes, and they advocate for a certain point of view, and so you don't get necessarily the biased or non-biased response that you want. And I think what you're speaking to is a big problem that we have, where voters feel that they're not listened to, they feel they're ignored, and that they're taken advantage of. And I think that's something that I hear on the streets. And one thing that I've done on the park board to deal with that issue is that I set up tables throughout my community to be there with the voters. I'll go out and I'll knock on doors. I'll send out emails, community meetings, that kind of thing, to give people their chance to respond, to tell me what they think I should do.
So it's a kind of personal referendum that you
in a way,
ask.
yeah.
This is not a personal referendum. This is saying, I don't have to go knock your door. When you're ready to answer the question, you come and answer the question here.
What we've seen, though, and the challenge with, I think, what you're advocating for, is that there's sometimes groups which will organize. There may be 3 or 4 people, but have a lot of money, and that they can organize to inundate you with emails. No, I know you don't, but there are groups, and I've seen it at the park board, where people will organize, they'll have a whole lot of money, and they'll tell you, this is what we have to do, and they'll send you full of emails, but they may represent only 0.2% of the election, of the population.
Spencer, that's what we're doing right now in elections. You know, if you have a lot of money to print a pamphlet, you're better off than somebody who doesn't have a lot of money to print a pamphlet like yours. So that's not really the
it's
issue.
money coming from people, that's the thing.
We're talking of the right of a voter to change his mind or change his vote when he changes his mind. That's the issue. Money is a problem, and it's like having a car who needs the brakes fixed, and we say, but the window is broken and the roof is leaking, and I say, yeah, those are also problems, but the brakes are the foremost important.
I guess, I don't agree with perpetual elections, that we should vote every minute of every day, because I think it's not democratic in the way that you're suggesting it is, because we've got a problem where people, a few people take advantage of the system. I think what we need to do is you need an elected representative who's actually there listening to you and who's actually there working with you. The challenge we have is right now is in many cases the person is not listening to you and is not working with you.
Spencer, we don't have a lot of time to discuss it.
That's fine.
I understand what you're saying, and viewers will understand what you're saying. And we just want to close it by asking Ian to tell us why people should vote for you, and instead of Spencer or Mark Emery or the other candidates that were invited but didn't come or didn't show up.
Well, our party is the only grassroots Democratic party. We believe in the STV. The NDP and the Liberals are both against the STV. Our party is the only one that wants effective recall. Our party is the only one that's against pork barrel spending projects like the RAV line or the Vancouver Convention Centre that's way over budget, or the Olympics that has been way over budget. We think that we should be concentrating on housing issues, on quality of life issues. We're the only party that cares about the quality of life issues in Vancouver, such as homelessness, mental health issues, addiction issues. We don't believe in pork barrel spending. We believe in spending money on improving our city, not on overspending for the Olympics, not on overruns for the convention center, not on fancy transportation systems. And there's no difference between the BC Liberals and the NDP. They're both big spending parties. They're both in favor of big projects. So just make sure you vote for Conservative.
Spencer, say that.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so why should people vote for you, Spencer, instead of Ian?
Well, first I just wanted to thank Ian for being here with the BC Conservatives. I think the challenge that we have with this by-election is, one, people don't know about it. But I think it gives us a real opportunity to send the government a message. What I'm hearing on the streets are people are tired of homelessness increasing. People are tired of being thrown out of their apartment buildings, which is what we're seeing.
So what will you do?
Well, I think what we need is an advocate for the community with deep roots in the community who understands the issues and works for the people. That's what I do. I'll stand up to Gordon Campbell on behalf of the residents of Vancouver-Burrard. I'll be a strong champion who will listen to our community and act for them, not sit on my hands and clap while the Premier passes another project which doesn't represent our interests.
Okay, well, thank you very much both for coming.
Thank you.
Perpetual democracy doesn't mean that you have to vote every day. It just means that you have the right and the ability to vote anytime you want. And that is what perpetual democracy is all about.